So, TLC happened, and overall it was a decent show. There was no especially bad match. Carmella vs Nikki Bella was probably the worst match on the show, but wasn't awful, and the gimmick matches all lived up to expectations. Even the chairs match was enjoyable. But it's the same story with every B show since the brand split. Every show has been good, but none of them have really mattered. Every time a show comes along, we sit and plan all the possible eventualities. Could we see new superstars debuting, other superstars returning, or possible face-heel turns? And every time the status quo is kept pretty much where it was before, and we have to wait until one of the big four shows for any meaningful change. While this definitely does make the big four feel that much bigger, it makes every other show feel like it's only there to pass the time. If I had missed TLC and read up on the results, it would have had a similar effect to watching it live. There was no must-see element at all. The biggest story shift coming out of the event was probably James Ellsworth's heel turn, but did anyone really care about that? Quick side note, if James Ellsworth wins the WWE Championship this week on SmackDown, even if the whole roster interferes, and even if he loses it after 5 minutes, I'm giving up on SmackDown. But Hell in a Cell was a similar story. The women's main event was reason enough to tune in, but they could have made that moment so much more meaningful had they waited a few months and really built the story up. The rest of the card was just a good show. There was nothing particularly incredible, even with 3 cell matches. A few weeks ago I defended the amount of pay-per-views, saying that each brand still had 4 weeks to build each show. When I wrote that, I didn't realise how untrue it would end up being, especially with regards to SmackDown, who had to wait so long for Survivor Series, then had 2 weeks to build to the next show, and now have to wait until the Rumble for another special event. This level of inconsistent pacing is going to be really unsustainable for the shows in the coming months. I can kind of understand why WWE are pushing so many shows out. In their mind, the more shows that are released, the better value the WWE network looks. On paper, it sounds a lot better to say you'll get 20 to 25 shows a year than just 12. But this assumes that quantity equals quality, and we know that it doesn't. Giving each show some breathing room, both for people to get excited and for them to think on it after the show, would be so helpful. This is something that NXT does so well. While I don't think 3 months between each event is the answer to WWE's problems, each takeover event feels really special because people have waited that long to see the show. It also means people don't get tired of the elaborate entrances they put on, because something like Finn Balor's demon attire can only be seen 4 times a year, while now we could be seeing it every month once he returns. After a lot of thought, I have decided that the best plan for WWE is to have 1 monthly special, so each brand has to wait 2 months show to show. As much as this would lead to a few months of very dragged out stories while the writers learn to cope with the new format, I think that once they get used to it, we could have stories that have enough time to build properly and events that feel special again. If WWE are really committed to bring value back to the network, despite the apparent lack of special events, then continuing the theme of the Cruiserweight Classic would be a great idea. We should be getting a women's wrestling tournament, but a tag tournament and something like a King of the Ring tournament featuring all the WWE superstars we know could do brilliantly. I'd quite like to see out-of-story wrestling events, similar to how TNA made their one-night-only events. It always seemed like the wrestlers were having a great time away from all their stories, and I think we live in an era where kayfabe is so far gone that the company could get away with it. So yes, TLC was a solid show. It's just a shame WWE and the fans have already pretty much forgotten about it. But we've heard they are considering reducing the amount of shows, and this would be a great decision for them. We'll just have to wait and see what they do. I'd like to thank Kevin MacLeod for his track Cool Hard Facts, used in this podcast and licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 3.0. You can find it at incompetech.com.